everyone. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the delightful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. This is episode 247, and today's title is Elevate Your Life. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe that many of us start out with a vivid vision of what we want our life and our career to look like. We dream of success. We dream of fulfillment. We dream of joy. But implementing our vision often feels like an uphill battle. We become entangled in patterns of procrastination, self-doubt, and overwhelm, maybe even settling for far less than we deserve. The common experience, I think, one that can leave you feeling stuck. And, well, if you're stuck, then you're unable to move forward, right? Well, perhaps you know what it's like to start with a clear set of goals, full of enthusiasm and determination. And as time goes on, challenges arise and obstacles seem insurmountable. You begin to question your abilities and the feasibility of your dreams. You begin to question yourself. You begin to wonder, am I really on the right path? The initial excitement begins to fade, and it's replaced by a sense of frustration, helplessness, and maybe even resignation. This is where many of us falter. And, this allows fear and uncertainty to kind of hamstring our actions. Well, the key to breaking free from these limitations lies in gaining clarity and making intentional choices. Clarity comes from a deep understanding of what you truly desire and a willingness to confront the barriers that are holding you back. It involves a shift from passive acceptance to active decision-making, from fear-driven hesitation to courageous action. For this episode of Life Mastery TV, I'm thrilled to be joined by Nicole O'Connor, the dynamic owner and CEO of Pink Sky Leadership. We're going to delve into a profound and transformative conversation that will help you to elevate your life. So share space with us here today as we empower you to follow through on your deepest aspirations, igniting your path to success, ease, and fulfillment. Please welcome Nicole O'Connor to the program. Now I'm just waiting for Nicole to find that camera button. There it is. She found it. All right. She's here.
So wonderful to be with you.
Thank you. Yeah. So great to have you. This is our first time together, and I'm just beginning to get to know you a little bit. I know you live in Boston. That much I learned before the show. And I wanted to just get a sense of who you are and what is it that led you into coaching people, helping them to find clarity. What happened in your life? Where did the self-doubt show up in your life that led you to find some tools that you now share with other people?
Well, David, it started really as a little girl, seeing my Auntie Deb smoke as a little girl. And at the time, I was in school doing a program called DARE, and it was all about students against drugs and alcohol. And I couldn't fathom a family member making decisions in her life that she knew could kill her. And so as a little girl, I made a sign for her, Auntie Deb, please stop smoking. And she was so gracious. She actually kept it. She didn't get mad at me or burn it or whatnot. But at the time, I realized that I had this profound interest in preventative health. And I also was very curious about helping people. I always wanted to find ways to help people. And if there was a person in my life, or as my clients now, somebody that I care about and I see them struggling, I want to do everything in my power to find them a solution, whether that is taking a course, reading a book, listening to a podcast, finding an advisor. I want to put them in a position to gain that connection to find the answers. So it really stemmed from watching a family member make choices that I didn't quite understand. I realize now, many years later, that I was judging her a little bit when I found myself climbing the corporate ladder and head down, grinding it out, and realized that I wasn't doing what I knew and I wasn't taking care of myself the way that I knew I should. So it was so easy for me as a little girl to judge my Auntie Deb for smoking and making decisions that I knew ultimately caused her to die of lung cancer that had spread to her brain. It then prompted me to really take a hard look at myself and figure out, where was I on autopilot, and where was I letting doubt of my own vision and dreams and goals get in the way of this, like, just let me go the traditional route of climbing the corporate ladder and put my happiness off for someday when. So I took a hard look through my own health challenges and really started to make intentional choices through really a reset and a pause to get really honest with myself.
Well, beautiful. Yeah. Becoming aware of self judgment of others and judgment of self at the same time. That's pretty impressive for someone who's so young. You know, a lot of us, people like me, for example, take a whole lifetime living in that dark space, not really realizing how we have perhaps given ourselves up, you know, allowed our own sovereignty to be cast aside in order to accommodate what we believe are the demands and expectations and desires of other people, you know, living someone else's dream rather than living our own. That's a great awareness to get at a young age. And, you know, I kind of envy you because, you know, for me, it took quite a few years to come into that awareness. I'm not saying that it's necessarily better to learn sooner, but I think, because after all, one of the truths that I believe is that, you know, I couldn't be where I am now had I not followed the path that I had already followed and made the decisions that I made. And by the way, not all my decisions were really stupid bonehead decisions. Some of them were actually pretty smart. But anyway, I think that's true for most of us.
Of course.
But my point is that I sometimes look at my life and I sometimes say to myself, man, if I'd only known this back then, how would my life have been different now? That's a great question. I mean, do you have clients who ask that question?
Of course. And I think through all of working with my clients, as well as those in my personal life, I think when you start to really reflect, you can have these aspects of wisdom and lessons. And I think a common phrase that I learned that was really effective for myself, and it works really well on my clients, is really having some of that self-compassion to say, what better time than now? Isn't it great that I learned this now instead of in 30 years, no matter what age you are, right? There are so much advances in science. People are living till 120. So even if you learn it at 110 years old, aren't I so appreciative that I've learned this now? And what I really learned through that is the power of the question and the frequency and the way of asking ourselves or proclaiming this, that yes, I wish I didn't have to go through maybe this painful experience, or maybe I wish I had learned this earlier. But the reality is we can't go back and change it. So there is this level of trying to get to some degree of acceptance to be able to move forward.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, there's another side of this that I think people don't often think about. And that is, even if I'm thinking about something in the past, I'm thinking about it now. It's always happening in the now. Even if I'm thinking about what might happen in the future, I'm thinking about that right now. All of these things only ever happen right now in this moment. The past and the future are just figments of our imagination. And the only real evidence that we have that time exists, at least on the physical plane, is the wrinkles that we develop over time. We say, you know, I didn't have that yesterday, and now I do have it. And, or the gray hairs or whatever else, you know, the scars, the other things that happen in life. These are just simple points of information that I can look at right now, and I say, oh, I got this scar from when I was 8 years old, 7 years old, something like that. And my brother was back swinging a golf club and he hit me on the side of the head. Now, I have no idea why I just thought of that. I mean, it really did happen. But my point is, yeah, I can see this scar and I can remember that event, but I'm remembering it right now. And it may have had a positive, it may have had a negative impact on my life. Whatever impact it had, it was one of the tiny little individual things that brought me to where I am today.
Totally. And David, one thing that you just said is when you talk about, because I have a scar on this side on my face as well. So when you think about when your brother did that, like, do you have a reaction in your body right now, or has it been so long that you sort of, it wasn't like
I don't even
emotionally
think about it.
triggering? You don't even think about it, right? And it's like what I've come to learn through some of my research and my own life experiences is that we have to learn how to train the brain. That's how the brain works. It's not unique to you or myself, but we all have this very old brain that we have to tell our brain, like, that was then and this is now. And you know this more than anybody through all of the work that you do, that freedom lies really in the present moment. And we're
Exactly.
not focused on the future. We're not focused on the past. We're really in the present moment. And that is all we have, is today and right now. And often all of our stress and overwhelm and burden and anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive is all focused on living in the past or living in the future. And we actually have to tell our brain to say that was then and this is now. I went
Right.
through a little bit of a traumatic experience very recently with the birth of my son about 8 weeks ago. And I actually found my brain starting to replay that and having a physical reaction. The thing is, all of us have reactions that live in our body and take up energy. Many times it's unconscious, but I became aware of it, that it was ruminating in my mind. And I actually
Right.
had to speak to myself and tell my brain, that's over now. We're safe. The baby's safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm safe. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here now. And many of us, it becomes many years in this compounding and layering of so many traumatic things or difficulty that life can just weigh us down. And when we don't acknowledge it or clear it or tell the mind that stop, close that chapter, we're moving forward, it can really rob us of our joy and our health and our energy. So I thought that your example was such a profound example that really highlights kind of the power of the brain and the mind, and
Yeah.
if we don't take control over it.
Right. Right. Yeah, those are great things that you brought up. I just wanted to acknowledge our guests and say thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the live show. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to share them in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond to those as we proceed. Nicole, I just wanted to point out something. You said the freedom is in the present moment. I think that's what you said, or I can't remember the exact phraseology, but it was something along that line. And I find it interesting that we talk about freedom existing in the present moment, as if there is no freedom in the past or in the future. And I think that is 100% true. If I'm allowing myself to dwell on the past, then I'm kind of stuck back there. It's like an anchor that's holding me and keeping me from this present moment. And if I'm worried about things that might happen in the future, it's the same thing. It's an anchor that's pulling me in the other direction. So I think that's really, really important to point out. If I can release both those anchors and stop, dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, and come right back here where everything is perfect, right here, right now, that is where true liberation resides, So thank you for mentioning that. The other thing I wanted to say is, you talked about how stuff gets stuck in our bodies, and we kind of store energy in our bodies, and our brains. It's actually, I think it's more ego mind than it is the brain itself. But the ego mind says, oh, you're not allowed to feel that. You're not allowed to express that. You're not allowed to show that, because then you're weak. Then you're going to look stupid. You're going to, all these other stupid judgment things that the ego mind likes to use are going to hold us back and keep us from fully feeling and expressing those emotions and those energies that are within us. And that really, I think, is one of the biggest sources of dysfunction and pain that we can possibly have. If we can learn, and this requires a little bit of work, you got to quiet the ego mind and allow yourself to get back into the true essence of who you are. Bring yourself into the presence of your heart. Bring yourself into a connection with your body, and allow the body to just simply release that energy that has been pent up in there for such a long time. It might involve, throwing your arms around. It might involve, banging on a table. It might involve beating a pillow. It might involve yelling. It might involve other kinds of movements. It might involve singing. It might involve no sound at all from your voice, but just action in your body. Whatever it is, what you're doing is you're releasing the energy. And once that energy has passed through, now you get back to that true sense of calm and serenity. And there's a beautiful, beautiful feeling there. That's hard to get to when you've got the ego mind trying to keep you from expressing the stuff that's in your body.
David, I just want to acknowledge all those great examples and completely agree. And it can be as easy as you were just saying to tell the body, release. Take a big deep breath in and just tell the body release. And as you were talking about any sort of movement of the body, a technique that I really love is called emotional freedom technique, known as tapping, which I have found to be hugely successful and impactful. And journaling is another way, getting really that clutter out of the mind and out of the body, getting it just out, as you were saying, moving. And this stuck energy, I think often we don't even realize, it's very unconscious that we're resisting a feeling, because most of the time, if we're in a meeting or we're going throughout our day and something happens, we might not have a moment to really sit and acknowledge or process it. So we just kind of keep moving forward, and we don't acknowledge that is kind of pushing things down or creating some resistance to it. And as you were talking about, with this resistance really builds up this pain in the body, which stems from inflammation, which is really the root of a lot of diseases. So if we can get that energy moving throughout the body's profound wisdom can then really heal itself and can start to tap into all of the immune system healing mechanisms and have greater mental clarity. I find that when working with my clients, if we can get really clear on what is it that they desire and maybe what has gotten in the way, what are they holding back? In the example that I had of my Auntie Deb, judgment is one area where we block joy and block that energy. Maybe future tripping and worrying so much up and creating this fear about something that might not happen is robbing us of energy that our body can use right now, because our energy then is outside of our body, focused on the future, focused on the past, and it's not using all that energy to really be in our power right now. So I think what you said about just how we can use our bodies and release some of this energy can really clear up so much that can create really physical results.
Yeah. That's beautiful, and I agree with you 100%. But there's something else that I want to say, and there's obviously there's a big difference between men and women. Women have been taught that it's okay to have some semblance of liberating of emotions. Men have been told the exact opposite. You got to hold that in, buddy. You got to kind of bite the lip and just stiff upper lip and all that kind of ridiculous stuff. And I know in my own life, a lot of the energy that I really would love to have released, I just kept pushing it down, not for hours, not for days, not for weeks, for decades. So for me, when I finally found a safe place where I was able to release that, let me tell you, it came out like a volcano. So there was a lot of anger, a lot of rage that came out of me. And, I was beating the crap out of some pillows and doing all kinds of stuff just to get that energy out. And surprisingly, you think, oh my God, there's no end to this. That's what people tend to think. They're afraid to let it go because they're afraid it'll never stop. But that's not true. The fact of the matter is the body just needs a way to get rid of it. And if you give it the freedom to do so, it'll do it fairly quickly. In my case, that rage was probably out of my system in 10 or 15 minutes. Now, that might sound like a long time, but really, for me, that was just one of the most blessed catharses that I've ever had. But here's what's interesting, and a lot of men want to be aware of this. After the anger and the rage had come out, I'll tell you what came out next was all the sorrow and sadness and pain and hurt that was underneath there. Stuff that I had refused to acknowledge when I was younger. So I had tears coming out of my eyes. I had snot coming out of my nose. I had crap coming out of everywhere. Well, that's too much information. No. But my point is that it was like I was just draining myself. All this energy that had been pent up and built up over years just drained out of me. That sadness part probably took another 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. But when it was all done, then I was just like an empty sponge. And I was standing in a room with a bunch of men, and all I could see was their beautiful spirits, their souls. I couldn't see their faces anymore, the physical faces. All I could see was this gold and blue energy, and it was flowing from all the men. It was flowing into me. It was filling me up. I'm telling you, it was the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
And
Sounds beautiful.
and what I also want to say is, yeah, I had to go through that catharsis to get to that place. And I'll tell you, I reconnected to my joy, my happiness, and I'm not going to tell you I never get angry anymore. No, of course I do. I'm still a human being, you know. But now I can deal with it much more in a much more healthy way, in a way that is not going to cause damage to anybody else, you know. And as you say, you talk about resistance. We can become unconscious to our resistance. This is something that I've noticed now in my meditation practice. One of the things that I do is I'll be doing my deep breathing exercises, and I'll just allow my attention to kind of flow around the inside of my body. And I'll just, you know, as if I'm a cave spelunker with a what do you call it, a flashlight, and I'm just looking at all the nooks and crannies in my body, and I'm saying, what's over here and what's over here? It's really kind of fun. And every once in a while, I'll find a place where it feels tense or painful, and I can just say to that part of my body, okay, let's just feel it. Let's just feel it. Let's just see what happens. And just saying that, I'm going to feel it, allows it to start to flow. And that feel and flow, by the way, are very, very similar words. So keep that in mind. But as I allow it to flow, then it just kind of leaves my body. And I say, wow, that tension is gone. The pain is gone. Now, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it'll come back. Sometimes it'll stay a little bit longer. But just allowing it, allowing. Very, very important. So I'm sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there, but you see where I'm coming from.
No, that was profound. I think everybody should take that away. Feel and flow, because it's so easy just to want to bypass it, but to let it like flow, and we want to move through those messy feelings. But
Right.
And thank you for just sharing vulnerably about that experience. It sounds very beautiful. And it's like we all don't want to feel it, but we have to just at least acknowledge it to then be able to move past it, and to feel it to then let it flow.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about just like really seeing this group of individuals that you were with, it's like you really then start to see that we are really more alike than we think. We really are not separate. And society and kind of the current structure and matrix wants to put different pressures on men and women, and be a strong boy and a good little girl, and all these different things of then how we kind of resist and suppress our expression and emotions differently. But as you were talking about that experience of really where you didn't even see the faces, you just saw the essence and the soul, that was really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, you're welcome. And I think that was the day that I really I began to understand what the avatar teachers have been telling us for eons, that we are all one. That I had that visceral experience, and I said, oh, that is absolutely true. It's not just a bumper sticker. It's a real truth. We are all one. I know that it's hard to really see that when our ego minds are in charge, and the ego mind continues to remind us of how we're separate from one another. But that's just the illusion of the physical world. The reality is that we are all one. The reality is that we're just the same. We're the same consciousness being expressed in multiple different ways. That's really the way I like to look at it.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree. You had like a mic drop, so I didn't want to piggyback on.
So your focus now with your clients, you talked about clarity. And I want to talk about that a bit, because I think we may have a misunderstanding about what clarity really means. So I'd like to understand what it means for you when you're dealing with your clients. What exactly, when you're talking about clarity, just give me a kind of a broad brush experience of what it means to you.
Yes. Well, clarity is power. I think when you are not clear, you don't take action, you don't move forward. It's very confusing, it's foggy. And when you do have clarity, it's clear. You could just move forward. You could just make a decision. It feels light. When there's confusion, it feels very heavy. So what I work on with my clients is really getting clear on what are their values, what are their priorities at this moment, and what are they really desire most. Everybody has different priorities, values, and desires at many different points throughout your life. It's going to change depending on the life stage that you're in and various life events and different perspectives that you've had. I've heard from one of the teachers at school talk about your experiences are really filtered through your own personal kaleidoscope, which is the way that I like to think about it is every single experience that has been passed down to you through your genes, through your family, through societal norms, through your own life events, through the teachers, the conversations, the books you've read, all the inputs that you've had, that then filters your own perspective. And it's the work that I do with my clients is very curated. We go through very specific exercises looking at their actions and lining it up with what they are telling me is really important to them, and then how are they showing up. So this helps to kind of bridge that gap between you say you really want this, and this is not coming from a place of judgment or shame. I've done this for myself. I continue to do it for myself. This is just like, because I told you at the beginning, I have a very strong passion of helping people. So my most loving response to be helpful is to be honest and to bring awareness. And so I think the opening before we can even gain clarity is to kind of soften a little bit and just be open. Are you willing to just open and let a crack of new information or new insight or a new possibility in, just the smallest amount? Because if you are very closed-minded or think that and very rigid and think that your way is the only way and what you're doing is perfect, then you have no opening. Then you probably wouldn't be seeking my services. People come to me for lifestyle advising because there's something that they want that they don't have now. And so I take ultimate responsibility in helping my clients really achieve what they want. And so we go through, as I was mentioning this, let's look at the data. Let's look at your actions, because actions speak louder than words. You can tell me you really value family, but where is family on your calendar? You can tell me you really value your health, but what are you doing daily or weekly to really prioritize your health? It's very easy for people to say the right thing, but then where are your feet going? And for me, integrity is so important because it really comes back to, I want to get my clients the results that they want. And that really is deep freedom and fulfillment. And so you need to have alignment within yourself. So when you have this say-do ratio that's off, that's going to cause this disconnect, and it's going to cause that resistance, and it's going to cause turmoil. So we really are looking at values, priorities, and desires, and then aligning that with the actions across multiple dimensions of your life. So I feel like I can say this on this show, David, with you, but the inner world and the outer world, and how your inner reality creates your outer reality. So getting really clear on what are you doing to manage your mind, your physical body, how are you feeding your passions, looking at your relationships, looking at your environment, and then really looking at how are you being of service and how do you want to leave a legacy? What is your personal brand? So we do a very holistic deep dive across a lot of these different dimensions to get really, really crystal clear. And then we build out a plan so that it feels very approachable and doable and not overwhelming. Because many of my clients come to me with so much information that they're already balancing, so many decisions that they need, being pulled in a lot of different directions. Oh, David, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you, but your camera has dropped off.
Okay, I'm back in. So as I was saying, a lot of different demands and pulled in a lot of different directions. So the last thing my clients need is even more confusion. So it's the clarity really is a pinnacle piece of the work that we do.
Yeah, I get it. And clarity, I agree with you. It's a very, very important aspect of it. One thing that I learned for myself years ago, and well, it's because of that 40-year period that I was talking about initially. I spent a great deal of my time doing things and behaving in ways that I thought other people wanted me to behave, how they wanted me to show up. I was kind of denying my true essence. And in the process, I kind of lost sight of who I really am. And so a big part of my work has to do with getting true understanding and awareness of who and what I really am. And I do the same thing for my clients, because once I know who I am, then my purpose becomes clear to me. I now know, since I know who I am, I know why I'm here. Those two questions, we ask them separately, but they're the same question, really. And what I have learned is that once I have figured out what my purpose is, then clarity becomes easy, because now I can say everything I do in my life has to align somehow with that purpose. And the truth of the matter is, everything I do in my life does in some way represent an expression of who I am choosing to be in the moment that I do that thing. That's something that a lot of people don't want to look at. So when I work with folks, I do the values and evaluation, words and actions kind of conversation as well. But I often reframe it. I'll say something like, so here's what I hear you say your values are, and here are the things I see you doing. Please tell me how this particular item here, what value is that expressing for you? What value are you getting benefit from by doing that? Let's say the guy or the girl, whoever, spends 2 hours a day playing video games. What is it that you're trying to get for yourself by doing that maybe you're not getting from some of the other actions? How is that serving you? This is what people need to understand. We're not trying to make you wrong. Maybe there's a good reason for playing video games. I don't know. Maybe it is part of your purpose in life. I don't know. But only you know the answer to that. So sometimes you just got to ask the questions. All right, tell me what value you are experiencing when you take this action, and how does it coincide with what you say your values are? And then that way, yeah. That way, you're not judging, you're not shaming, you're not doing anything. You're just saying, here's the questions that I'm offering you. You can decide whether you want to answer them or not. That's up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. That's not my job. The only person who can tell you what to do is you.
Right. And as you were just sharing that example of how you work with your clients, I thought of a mentor that I have, Tony Robbins, and he always talks about that as human beings, we will violate our values to get our needs met. And I heard you say that. Like, what are you not getting that you're trying to get through playing the video games? So it's when we look at it through that lens of all human beings have these basic needs, and it's bringing awareness, because often we can't see, even those of us, all of us included, that want to be super self-aware. Many of the things that we're doing are just patterns that we've picked up or caught or learned, or maybe hopefully some of them are intentional choices that we've made or habits that we've developed. But a lot of these patterns can be unconscious. And they can be on autopilot. So by bringing awareness to, did you know, with like a sense of curiosity, did you know you're spending, in your example, 3 hours playing video games? Is that how you are choosing to spend your time? Yeah. And it helps to just bring that awareness, which with that opening, then you can make a different choice.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought up the subject of choice, because that's something that I also really strongly believe in. Everything that we do is basically a choice, whether it's a choice that we make consciously or a choice we make unconsciously. And as you say, it could just be an unconscious pattern, something that we're used to doing. Like we get up in the morning and, maybe we scratch our head or something, and that's just an unconscious pattern. Maybe we do that every morning. Maybe we don't. I don't know. But generally speaking, when you get up out of bed in the morning, you probably follow a particular sequence of events. You get up, you go to the bathroom, you wash your face, you go out for a walk, whatever it is you do. These are things that you probably do on a regular basis. Are you doing them consciously? That's the question. Are you doing them with intention? Are you doing them with clarity? That's really what you're trying to get to. And some people say, that's boring. I don't want to be aware all the time. I know. Sometimes I just want to walk around like a zombie in my, sleepwalking mode. But the truth is, the more time I spend in my conscious state, the less time I want to spend in that sleepwalking state. That's what I've noticed. Maybe other people have noticed it too. Have you noticed that?
Yes, and I think, as you said, it can be like you can kind of fall asleep, if you will. You can get in your autopilot, and it's not to say, because I remember as I was going through this for myself many years ago, and of course still continue to look at certain areas and kind of pull them apart. It can be very tiring because you're training your mind and the brain and creating new neural pathways and connections in the mind when you're changing a habit. And I saw this great visual before when if you put like your hands across each other and thumbs like left over right and then right over left, if it's like whatever your natural is, if you want to then do the other, of course, it's just going to take a moment to think about it. But so it can be tiring as you're trying to make a new conscious choice because you're creating a new pattern. And so the goal and the way that I work with my clients really is not saying, let's blow up your whole life. And all of a sudden now you're going to be this fully awakened human being. But it's like, what is the area of the life that is causing you turmoil or unhappiness? And what do you want to change? And let's look at it and let's get to the root cause. And maybe we can change like one or two patterns. And it doesn't have to, it's likely going to feel just a little uncomfortable at the beginning, but it doesn't have to be painful. And it is going to take courage, and we have the tools to know how to work through the resistance. It can just be very easy, but the first step is really being open to even look at it and to get really honest with yourself and let yourself be bold enough and courageous enough to even say, wow, I do want that unapologetically. I'm not holding myself back. If I think about my full expression and what I really desire, asking for it, going for it. But I see so often it's like all of us we're not honest. We don't fully ask what we want and then make the choice to go make the change. We can just accept because it might seem hard, but there's so many different tools and practices to be able to kind of move through that resistance. And it doesn't have to be hard. It can be very simple. And you can just start to pull one pattern that maybe you don't like, that you become aware of. Then your body's kind of ready to release it and change it. It doesn't have to be like this catastrophic event that you have to fully change who you are.
Right. I love that you brought up the hands. That's something that I started doing. I just noticed one day that whenever I bring my hands together, I always have my fingers interlocked in a particular pattern. Very comfortable. I'm used to it. And one day I just noticed this and I said, I wonder what would happen. And I switched and I said, wow, that feels weird. That feels weird. That feels so different. But what I thought about, as I said, I wonder how many other choices I'm making that are just this pattern. It's like crossing your legs. If you have your legs fully lengthed out, do you have right foot over left foot or left foot over right foot? Do you cross your right leg? Whatever. Do you put your pants on right leg first or left leg first? These are silly little ideas, but if you can just bring your awareness up, I'm not asking you to change it. Just notice. That's all. It's about awareness, because the moment you have awareness, you increase your clarity. It just happens automatically. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing I started doing was I do yoga exercises, and I know that most of these yoga stretches that they do, they all, like for example, the sun salutation. They always tell you to do your thing, and then right foot back and then left foot back. I said, to hell with you. I'm going to do left foot first. I started switching around, because I think my body is not just right-handed, and I don't think there's any spiritual reason why I shouldn't be able to put my left foot first. I can't think of any possible reason for that. So I start, switching things up. And in some exercises, I'm supposed to cross my hands. And I notice that I still have that tendency to use the same thing. I say, I'm going to switch my hands and do it the other way. Just get used to it. It's great. It's a great exercise, I think, to raise awareness about the patterns that we are involved in. And I highly, highly recommend it. You'll notice all kinds of other things starting to become more prominent in your awareness as you do that. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great topic. Now, another thing that you mentioned, well, you didn't mention it in our conversation, but you did mention it in your write-up, this idea of a personal advisory team. I want to talk a little bit about that because I think that's just a wonderful, wonderful idea. And I'd like to hear what that means for you.
Yes, so I work in the finance space, and many are familiar with financial advisors. And so if you have an investment account, you have a financial advisor that helps advise you on your finances. You don't have to be a super deep expert in that area, but you will not try to go and start investing in different modalities that you're not familiar with. You would go to an expert. So as I have been moving up through my professional career, I realized the power of learning lessons from mentors and from others. And I've already mentioned Tony Robbins, but he always says success leaves clues. And through having a personal advisory board, you're really able to turn decades of information and knowledge into days of learning. So I feel very strongly about having, some people call it a personal board of directors. Some people view it as like their inner circle, their tribe, whatever language you'd like to use. I like to say, as part of Pink Sky Leadership, that I am your strategic lifestyle advisor. This is the person that I wish I had as I was designing my life. Over the last 15 years, I wish there was some sort of playbook that kind of said, this is how you can design a fulfilling life. And these are some things to consider. And these are some areas to make intentional choices. But there wasn't. So I went off and I found different experts in all these different areas. And I see there's so much value in collaborating and working with other people to help of what we had just talked about, get a new perspective, bring awareness, get clarity. Maybe there's somebody that has a result that you want, and you can learn from them how they got that result so much faster than maybe spending time figuring it out on your own or trying to read a book on it, which I love to read. So I'm not at all saying don't read books, but maybe there's like a very specific implementation plan by going to work with an advisor in a certain area. So this concept of the personal advisory team really comes back to, you don't have to do it alone. In my opinion, I feel that collaboration is the new currency in the modern world that we're living in. There's so many deep experts in an area that you don't need to be a deep expert in every area. Really get into your hone of genius and where you are naturally passionate about and live in that area. And the things that you're not really that great at or enjoy doing, outsource it. Get the expertise, get the advice. I do this just as a very simple example of a lifestyle choice. I don't love to cook, but I really like to eat healthy. So my husband and I figure out, he's an amazing chef, and we figure out what nights does he want to cook, and then when do we want to do some really healthy food delivery services. So it's just one example. It can be a very small decision, but where are you reducing that mental load that you don't need to carry it all yourself, and you don't need to figure it all out yourself? Where can you lean in to this board of directors, advisory team for different points of view, different services, expertise, where you can maybe collaborate? Because I do think as human beings, we all want to support each other and we want to add value to each other. And most often we all want to help each other. And I know for a long time, I was blocking a lot of help. I thought, oh, let me be proud enough. I'm going to just like grin and bear it. I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to figure it out. I don't want to ask for help. That's going to make me look weak. But I think actually asking for help is a sign of courage, and being vulnerable is going to get you the results that you want that much faster. So as soon as I was willing to really look in the mirror and get honest with myself and get the help that I needed in certain areas and build that expertise and build the skills, your whole life will change. So it's a unique sort of concept, but a lot of people don't often understand, like, Nicole, what do you mean by your strategic lifestyle advisor? So I analogize it with I'm a strategic advisor to my clients in the business world for large scale transformations. And I help individuals through Pink Sky Leadership with their lifestyle choices. So it's the day-to-day choices that are really impacting how they're showing up and how they're feeling and how they're managing their energy. So I think it's so important to make sure that you're not just trying to do it all yourself and alone, and lean on those that truly do want to help you and that have the results that you want.
Thank you. You caught me in the middle of a sneeze there. I had to
God
turn
bless
off
you.
my microphone. Yeah. One thing I was going to say about the advisory board, we have to be careful who we choose to be on that board. There are people in our lives who may not have our best interests at heart. And so, they might appear to be helping us, but in their energy, they're actually sucking stuff out of us and preventing us from getting where we want to go. So remember, this is the thing about awareness. You have to kind of test in with yourself, check in with your heart and soul, and say, is this person the right fit for me? Now, maybe you might still want to be friends, but that person doesn't have to be on your advisory board. You may decide, no, this person is perfect for me because he or she triggers me in just the right ways to think about how I can move further forward in my life. If you can say yes to that kind of question, then you probably are choosing a good person. The other thing to bear in mind is that this is not necessarily a lifetime relationship. You have a board of advisors, and some of them will come and go. You may decide, thank you so much. You've done a great job for me, but now it's time for me to release you and allow you to move on to the next thing that you're going to do. And I'm now going to find someone else to fill that spot. So think about it in that regard, that you're always trying to do whatever is necessary to move your life in the right direction for you, not the right direction for somebody else. Okay? So bear in mind that when somebody on your advisory board is suggesting movement in a direction that doesn't feel aligned with you, that's probably a good sign that you don't want to take that advice. So trust yourself. Trust yourself first and say, these people came into my life. They have served a purpose. I'm very grateful for that. And now it's time for me to move on.
David, so true. I recently this came to me that you seek externally for inspiration and internally for the truth. So it may bring up something to consider, a different point of view. But then, as you said, it's so important to really check in. Does this feel true for me? Is this aligned? Do they have the results that I am going to them for? You wouldn't go to somebody for something if they're not living or have achieved what you are seeking to get from them. And I think often, as you said, some people may be on your board unconsciously that you maybe didn't even choose, or maybe you're getting advice from, but they may be projecting their own past fears or limiting beliefs onto you. And they're not even aware of the possibilities or your own capabilities. And so it's so important to be careful of like who you are letting in. And as you're filtering the information, to really ultimately, you have to own the decision individually. Nobody,
Right.
You can't outsource it. Nobody can to make the decisions for you. You have to make it for yourself, and it has to be true for you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And the other thing to understand is that all of us are on some kind of a path of spiritual growth, whether we want to call it that or not. That's ultimately what I think we're all here to do, is to get clearer and clearer about who we really are and why we're here, and to maybe do our part to improve the world. Now, that may not always look that way when we look at other people and the kind of actions that they choose and the kinds of things that are going on in the world. But I honestly do believe that deep down in my heart that all of us are motivated by a deep desire to give or receive love. That's ultimately what I think we're all trying to do. It's just that some of us haven't learned to do it properly, and we may be doing it in a dysfunctional way that appears externally to be more destructive than constructive. So One of the things that I just like to remind everybody about is, if you are truly in a place of growing yourself and expanding, remember that other people in your life are not moving at the same rate as you. They're not moving in the same direction as you. And you're going to find people who are at a level of consciousness that might appear to be spiritual, but really is nothing more than spiritual ego. You're going to run into people like that. And so just beware, and note that they may sound all lofty and great, and they might have some great sounding phrases and stuff, but always, 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 and I'm going to rephrase what you said, find your inspiration out there and find your truth in here. So I'm paraphrasing what you just said, Nicole. Anyway, that's what I think. So one of the things that you mentioned early on, in the first few minutes when we got started, you talked about just having a sense of appreciation for where you are right now, and for how you got here and all the rest of it. And I think that appreciation and gratitude are very, very important. What's your perspective on that?
Oh, gratitude has changed my life. I think it's something that I learned as a little girl. And really, I've learned this through the power of reflection. Sometimes there's moments where life gets so busy and we're go, 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 and we maybe are not present and we're not fully appreciating the present moment. But I think through training and through reflection, you can then look back and do an honest inventory for yourself around, how did I show up? Was I present? Was I grateful? And through these practices of reflection, you can almost relive that memory and that moment to then be able to, in the next time, show up differently, show up how you want to, be more present, kind of do the brain dump or take care of the fears or whatever before, so that you can really enjoy that moment. Pink Sky Leadership was really inspired and named after growing up, going to the beach with my family. And we would often watch the sunset at the beach. And there's an old saying, pink sky at night, sailors delight. Pink sky in the morning, sailors take warning. And it was all around, like, depending on the sunset at night or in the morning, how the day was going to be the next day. And there's just this great presence around, as you were talking about, we all want to give and receive love. And this moment of being with those that we care about and just being really present and being with them, and not just focused on our worries of tomorrow or what happened of today, and letting it rob us of those moments with the people that we care about. And the sunset is just such a great reminder of, no matter what has happened that day, that tomorrow there's always a new possibility and a new hope. And so gratitude and reflection has been really a pinnacle of my life. And right before COVID, I have a count, I don't have it offhand, but about 4 years ago, I started doing the daily 5-minute journal. I highly recommend it. It's quick 5 minutes. I keep it on my bedside. It's gratitude prompts in the morning and at night. And it does truly help you provide that prompt and trigger, if you will. A lot of people use the word trigger. I've also heard this recently, glimmer is the positive of a trigger. So it gives you like a little bit of that glimmer to help reinforce and to actually train the brain and the reticular activation system around, let me visualize, what am I really grateful for? What are the top 3 things I'm really grateful for? And then it asks you, what would make today great? So it gives you that opportunity at the beginning of your day to tell yourself, I always say with my husband, today's gonna be a great day. Today's gonna be a beautiful day. Or I'm so grateful for today. Always at the top of my list is my health, my family, those that I get to connect with. I'm always very grateful for what I get to do during the day. And that wasn't always the case, but I now have been able to design a life that I look forward to every day. And then it has an I am statement. And this has been extremely powerful for building confidence. And also, as you said, David, really remembering who you are. We often can really get attached to labels and identities. And for a long time, I think I put a lot of my identity in my career, in what I was doing professionally. And that was so limiting. And then that can be taken away from you. And that can be very unstable, rocky surface to start to really live your life upon. So I think gratitude, it may sound cliche because a lot of people are like, oh, gratitude practice. But I think if you can really embody having a mindset of gratitude and abundance, and it really just comes back to, are you choosing love or are you choosing fear? And if you can live in this perspective of gratitude and clarity, it really helps you to feel energized and at peace. And it just has this like effortless beauty going into every single day. Because ultimately, as I had shared of the decisions that my Auntie Deb had made, her life ended very short. And I think it has driven this relentless pursuit to just really seize every moment and every day. We only have today. And our time is our most precious resource. And we all aren't going to be here forever. So it's really, how do we want to use our time? And I know for many years I robbed myself of being focused on fear and worry and scarcity. And I think a simple gratitude practice really helps you to really move into that practice of abundance.
Right. And so beautiful, nicely said. I like that. A question that I like to ask myself is, what's great about this moment?
Mm.
No matter what I'm doing, if I can stay in that question, even when I'm in the middle of traffic and, I see that guy flipping me the finger, I can ask myself, what's great about this moment? What am I grateful for right now? Part of the challenge that we have is we think that only good things are things that we should be grateful for. That's our ego mind operating, by the way. In reality, there's nothing that we should not be grateful for. Everything has a purpose for us. Everything serves us in some way. Remember, I honestly believe the truth that the universe does things for us, not to us.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get stuck in the victim mentality if you want to, and maybe there's something about that can make you grateful. Or you can rise above it and you can say, the universe is providing this for me to help me grow and stay connected to the truth of who I am. I'm grateful for that. And then the other question that I always, well, not always, but I try to ask myself on a regular basis. The moment I ask, what's great about this moment, I ask, what would love do now? What would love do now? Try to keep that flow of love. That doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect. You're not going to be, sometimes you might mess up. But if you're always intentionally trying to come from a place of love, then 99.9% of the time your actions will be received in that same energy. And that's really what I think we're talking about in order for us to have a higher valued life. And that's what we've been talking about today, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And I love those questions. And a question that I would like to add is, what can I learn from this? And I really like what you said about like, what would love do in this? And I always just try to think about like, what can I learn from this? Like, what is this teaching me? Because I have that same belief as you, that the universe is working for us. It's not happening to us. And I think that we don't always appreciate what other people are going through. And so really a strong value of mine has been to lead with kindness and compassion to myself and others, because we truly don't know what's happening. We don't know, David, if you had some traumatic event happen this morning and then you're getting on screen and you're being of service to all of your community hosting the show, regardless of what you just went through. So I think if we can all show up with a little bit more kindness and love, I think the world would be a brighter place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Nicole, we're getting to the top of the hour here. I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here and for sharing such beautiful wisdom from your lovely, soulful heart. Thank you for that. Is there any final words you'd like to share before I close us out?
Well, thanks, David, so much for having me. It's been such an enjoyable conversation and such a pleasure to meet you and share this time with your community. I would say that if anybody watching this would like to learn more about Pink Sky, we're on Instagram at Pink Sky Leadership, as well as at pinkskyleadership.com. We're about to be kicking off a summer reset program starting after the 4th of July, so second week in July. So if any of this sounds like of interest to you and you just feel like maybe you need a new reset or fresh perspective to get some more clarity and actually build out a curated plan, we're going to be launching that program early July for about 6 weeks this summer. So would love to have you join us. So definitely reach out at Nicole at pinkskyleadership.com or check out the website or Instagram for more information. And the last thing I'll just say is I know for many years that I think there was so much support and resources like David, Life Mastery TV, and all of the beautiful creation and work that you put out into the world. But sometimes when we're caught in the busyness of the day or in the judgment or in the lack, we aren't always open to receive and see the resources. So I think for those that are listening to your channel, likely are open to receive. But I'm just very grateful for this opportunity and just for the work that you put out into the world, because I think that if we all listen in and tune in and are open to receive it, I think it's going to make a massive impact on the world. So thanks, David, for all you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I am grateful for those beautiful words that you just shared, Nicole. Thank you. So, folks, by gaining clarity on your true desires and making intentional choices, overcome procrastination, self-doubt, and overwhelm. Through reflection, intentional living, and the practice of daily promises and gratitude, learn how to navigate life's challenges and stay aligned with your goals. Empower yourself to ignite your path to success, ease, and fulfillment, transforming your vision into reality. Thank you for watching today's program or for being here on the show live. And remember, you can catch the recordings of this and all my other previous episodes on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And finally, friends, I invite you to remember to practice my life mastery mantra every single day. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, I'm David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. And I'll see you here next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye for now.